Hi, I'm Shelby Williams with Plano City Council. You may notice I am not in a tie tonight. That's because tonight, a Wednesday night, we had our first view of the budget for the next fiscal year. The proposed budget for the next fiscal year is not final. And traditionally, we come casual to this meeting, which I am. I mean, I'm practically in my pajamas. So, in the proposed budget, I'm going to skip right to the punchline and tell you that the proposed tax rate for the next fiscal year is above the voter approval rate of 3.5%. So I'll explain what that means. The voter approval rate means that the tax increase across all properties in the city in aggregate is no more than 3.5%. So one level of taxation this year, no more than 3.5% for the next year. The effective tax rate, previously called, the no new revenue tax rate, previously called the effective tax rate, means that across all properties in the city, there is no tax increase at all. We have done this for the past 4 years in a row. In order to achieve the voter approval tax rate for this coming fiscal year, we would need to trim $6.2 million from the proposed budget. In order to achieve the no new revenue rate, which would be for the 5th year in a row, we need to trim $17 to $19 million for the budget. Now, I don't necessarily support adopting the no new revenue rate for a 5th year in a row for a couple of reasons. First, we're not adding any new programs or services. Overwhelmingly, the increase is driven by inflation. So here's the thing, as I've said before, the no new revenue rate is not sustainable in perpetuity. You can't just adopt it forever because there is such a thing as inflation. When inflation is low, then you can do certain things to offset it, and it's a lot easier. When inflation is high, as it has been the past couple of years, it's a lot harder to do those things. So in any given year, especially on an ongoing basis, in order to achieve the no new revenue rate, which means, again, not increasing taxes, keeping taxes flat across all properties in the city in aggregate on properties taxed in both years, you have to do one of three things. First, you either have to cut costs, which we have over the past 4 years by operating with increasing efficiency to drive greater value for every tax dollar we spend. The number two, you have to add new properties to the property tax rolls. Under our current property tax system, this is the chief method of taxation for local government. So you have to actually add new properties that aren't factored into the no new revenue rate calculation. Now, we have added some, not many. And the third thing is you get an infusion of cash. We did get CARES money in 2020, 2021. Now, so all of those things happen to some degree or another. To continue to do it, some combination of them has to continue to happen sufficient to keep pace with the inflation that we've seen. So here's the reality. In the past 4 years that we've adopted the no new revenue tax rate, inflation has climbed by about 20%. Our tax increases and cost savings, I should say tax increases by bringing new properties online, and our cost savings have not amounted to that. So we have driven even more value for that, but the piper's coming to collect his due. Now, as long as inflation is high, this is going to be harder to achieve. So here are a few things to note. First, the average home value in Plano has increased from $494,000 at this time last year to $564,000 this year. Yeah, that's right. The average home in Plano, single-family home, is worth $564,000. Nobody saw that coming 20 years ago. But here we are. Here's another thing. The Plano Housing Authority, and by extension, the Plano Public Facilities Corporation, had for a couple of years been pulling, principally in the last year, apartments off the property tax rolls completely, unilaterally, without council say or approval. This has hit us for $3 million. That's $3 million that we no longer have, that we used to get. So again, the three legs of the stool, the three levers to pull, that money has to be made up for somewhere. We are proposing a 3% across the board pay increase for staff. I support this because amid between 5 and 9% inflation, a 3% pay increase is a net pay cut. It's a real pay cut. Simultaneously, we're currently in the process of a compensation study. We want to make sure we remain competitive amongst cities in North Texas, and that we are approaching compensation in a creative manner and providing proper incentives. So we have allocated a little money. That study is not going to be ready to adopt any changes by the time we adopt the next fiscal year's budget, which is going to be in September. So we have allocated a little money to implement any of those changes midstream in the middle of the fiscal year. Now, this doesn't affect property taxes, but we are getting an 11% increase passed along to us from the North Texas Municipal Water District. We only have to pass along 6% of that to you. Now, the reason for that is because we increased the rate last year at this time in anticipation of this. So we're passing along a little of the savings now. Now, there are some dates to keep in mind. August 10th, there's going to be a town hall on the budget and the CIP. That's the Community Investment Plan. On August 14th, we're going to have an actual council meeting with the proposed CIP and a public hearing on the operating budget and the general fund budget, and we're going to determine the proposed tax rate. That is where we will decide whether we're going to go forward with the current proposed tax rate, we're going to go to the voter approval rate, or down to the no new revenue rate, or somewhere in between. We have to do it on August 14th because by law we are required to publish that proposed rate in the newspapers. From that point, we cannot legally increase the tax rate before we formally adopt it, but we can decrease it. We can't go any higher, but we can go lower. On August 17th, we're going to have a council work session that includes our grant funding proposals, the Buffington grants. On August 28th, we are going to have a public hearing on the tax rate. That's where it's a second public hearing, really, on the tax rate. And again, from that point, we cannot increase it, but we can decrease it. On September 11th, we are going to actually adopt the budget and the new tax rate for the next fiscal year, which starts October 1st. So just a little end note about the property tax rates. It's in the purview of cities, not school districts. And by the way, the Plano Independent School District has been hit harder by the Plano housing authorities pulling those property taxes off the rolls because their property tax rate is significantly higher than the cities because they have dramatically increased costs over the cities. So they have lost a lot more money than the $3 million we were hit by. But in our property tax system, cities have the option of an additional sales tax. Counties and school districts don't have that luxury, or special districts. Cities get 2 cents sales tax. That's optional. It's not required under law. The state takes 6.25% sales tax. Cities have the option of an additional 2%. By virtue of being a DART member city, half of that sales tax goes straight to DART. So that's going to amount to, I think, $112 million estimated in the next fiscal year of your sales tax money that's going straight to the Dallas Area Rapid Transit, DART. I feel confident in saying we are not getting anywhere near that in value as a city. And we have been working to try to get simple transparency, understand what is actually being spent by DART in the city of Plano and to the benefit of the city of Plano. That's not some nebulous calculation of what value we perceive out of it, but actual hard costs that are spent here and capital allocations. We have not been able to get that yet from DART. We tried to get that through the legislature this session, unfortunately unsuccessfully, but we're not giving up. But all this to say is because Plano is Plano is the shining star of North Texas. We are no longer just an adjunct to the city of Dallas as we were many decades ago. We are not getting full value out of our 2-cent sales tax option. And so we have to make that money up from fees for programs and services and property taxes. Now, I have very publicly stated for many years now that I think our property tax system in Texas needs to be eliminated. It no longer serves the purpose it once had. It's codified in our Texas Constitution, which 150 years ago, when our Constitution was ratified, roughly 150 years, it probably made a lot of sense. We had an agrarian economy. Land was the primary means of producing wealth. So taxing property in that technological age probably made a good amount of sense. It no longer does. We live in a dramatically different technological age and a dramatically different economy. We are no longer in an agrarian economy, obviously. So taxing property value no longer makes sense, all the more because the value of your property is completely disconnected from the cost of city services, what it takes to actually fund our public safety, police and fire, our libraries, our parks, etc. It's also completely disconnected from your ability to pay your taxes. So when you get a property tax increase, that's just belt tightening. You don't get to pass that along to anybody unless you're a landlord, which means the residents still have to pay for it in the end. That's one of the dirty little secrets about property taxes is many renters ironically think they don't pay property taxes. They pay more per square foot than homeowners because they are afforded none of the protections that limit the property tax increases under Texas law. So all of that additionally to say, I am a big advocate for eliminating property taxes and moving to a consumption tax model. That is, after this legislative session in Austin, looking more likely. Still probably not going to happen for at least a couple of sessions. I'm going to keep advocating for it, obviously. But there was a push in Austin this session and this special sessions, to eliminate property taxes entirely and move to a consumption tax model that I've never seen before. So that's really encouraging. So as we talk about things like the voter approval rate, the no new revenue rate, and property tax increases, understand that there is hope on the horizon, and the very best thing you can do is advocate for it alongside me and alongside the thousands of others who are advocating for it, and do so loudly because we are being punished by the Texas property tax system. And Plano specifically is being punished by the structure of DART currently, whereby we have to fork over half of our sales tax. That's sales tax money, $112 million up to, that could be used for all sorts of other purposes and to offset property taxes. Now, we could theoretically just get free Uber for everybody who currently rides DART and still save a ton of money. Not that I think that's an effective model, but just for illustration's sake. So please make your voice heard. Please attend these public meetings and town halls. Make sure you know what your local government is spending and why and what they're taxing you. And stay informed. I hope to continue to inform you via these videos and my blog. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Shelby Williams of Plano City Council. God bless.